Hello, welcome to Time to Say Goodbye. It is the 21st of January. We're recording this on the 20th, so the usual disclaimer that if something happens in the next 24 hours, please don't get mad at us. Today we have on a very special guest. He is an attorney in Minneapolis. He is also one of the internet's most famous people, for years now. He is Will Stancil. Will, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
Um, well, I wanted to, like everybody else, I think, or at least people who are interested in politics and what's been happening in Minneapolis, I've been glued to your blue sky reports on what you have been doing and what people, not you even so much, but more importantly, what people in your community and your
That's right.
neighborhood have been doing. And so I just wanted to start by grounding the listener a little bit and say, like, can you describe what this neighborhood that you live in right now is, like, who lives there? Because a lot of this seems to be happening in your specific neighborhood. And when you started seeing ICE agents coming into your neighborhood, like what that looked like and what that felt like.
So I live in uptown Minneapolis, which is just it's one of the relatively core neighborhoods of Minneapolis. And it's kind of a mixed neighborhood. I mean, you've got sections that are affluent homeowners, you got sections that are renters, a lot of businesses around here. And like pretty much everywhere in Minneapolis, this is not just happening to us by any measure, but pretty much everywhere in Minneapolis, we've seen since the operation, quote, Metro surge, unquote, has begun, we have seen this flood of extremely aggressive federal agents, Border Patrol, ICE, supposedly doing immigration enforcement, supposedly doing fraud investigation, just filling our neighborhood in just an unbelievable number of vehicles and agents with in an incredibly aggressive way, and then essentially kind of laying siege to the city. Um, the killing of Renee Good, which was major national news, got a lot of attention. But I think people are only now sort of beginning to understand the scale of what was happening here before that, and then especially after that, in terms of federal forces on the ground, and the way they're conducting themselves. I mean, it's just sort of give an example. There was a lot of talk about ICE operating Chicago, the Midway Blitz operation, or whatever they called it. So Chicago is a city of, let's say, it's a region of 8 million people. They had 300 ICE agents. We have 3,000 ICE agents and
Right.
CBP agents here, for a region of 3.2 million. So it's essentially 25 Midway Blitzes at once.
You
Mostly
pointed this
focused on
out.
Minneapolis at first, at least.
You pointed this out, and it's like I believe you said that the Minneapolis Police Department has 600 officers,
That's right. So we have
right? And so,
600 Minneapolis police officers. Um, at the start of this, the majority of ICE's and DHS's efforts were focused on Minneapolis. They had 3,000 people. So you had 5 times as many ICE and federal agents here as you had police. And so what this means is that they were everywhere. I mean, you would
right.
see them everywhere. You would drive down the street, you would go one block, and you would see a sketchy looking black, suburban or black expedition, and you look in, there's 4 mass Border Patrol agents in there. You follow them for a little bit, they jump out and they would grab someone off the street and then tear gas the street. I mean, it really felt like we were subject to an occupying force. I've seen last week, I've seen things that just I never thought I'd see, and it wasn't like I was driving to some remote location. This was happening, at intersections I go by every day, places I shop every day. Some of my favorite restaurant in the neighborhood got tear gassed. The major commercial intersection in my neighborhood where I've done tons and tons of work to revitalize, there was a military style jump out with 20 dudes pepper spraying people and grabbing a random black woman off the street and stuffing her in a van and abducting her. No one knows who she is. And this was happening, and I was just seeing one tiny sliver of this. This was happening all over the city, all at once.
So this is the kind of thing that I live in Maine, and they are this morning just arriving in Maine. People are seeing them out around town. There's wreaking havoc, and it's only a few agents so far. I think it seems like there's maybe 60 or 80 is the rumor we're being told,
Mm-hmm.
in the state currently. But Portland is much smaller than Minneapolis, and the
Mm-hmm.
presence feels kind of omnipresent, is the sense I get from people who are
Mm-hmm.
in Portland right now. So when you were are they still all over Minneapolis in the same numbers that they were? And so normal people are just going about their day and this is unavoidable? Like, this is not the kind of thing, if you stay out of certain neighborhoods, you might not notice it. It's everywhere.
I would say that, so what has happened is the community has organized very aggressively against ICE. It's been every part of Minneapolis. I mean, this isn't something that's just happening in, communities with a tendency toward activism or, you know, immigrant communities. It's every single person in Minneapolis, more or less, is just completely 100% opposed to what's happening here. And so since that has happened, we've got these systems in place, which we can talk about, as to sort of monitor, track, and record, and generally restrain them. The presence in Minneapolis itself has, at least for the last few days, seemingly declined somewhat. They still have thousands of agents here in Minnesota, and it seems like those agents have gone out to some of the smaller towns in outstate Minnesota. I've heard a lot of stories of aggressive tactics in St. Paul and in many of our suburbs, which we have a number of diverse suburbs with large immigrant populations, and it seems like they're out there. Minneapolis, even with that said, though, I mean, yesterday, so today I've gone out on ICE patrol, and we can talk about what that means.
Right.
But this weekend or a couple of days where I saw a couple cars that were confirmed ICE. Today I went out and I didn't see any cars that were confirmed ICE. Yesterday they were everywhere. I literally traveled 1 block from my house, ran directly into an ICE car stopping someone and threatening them. Then an hour later, ran into a bunch of ICE cars that actually followed me home and threatened me in front of my house. And so this is it's still extremely common, even though they have supposedly kind of spread out, just because they have so many people here.
I want to get a little bit
following you home. Sorry, Jay.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, what happens here is that I'll talk a little bit about how the patrol works. What we have done is we've set up these essentially local rapid response networks. So you go around, we have foot observers, people on the ground with whistles. They'll watch for suspicious cars. You can usually make them. There's lots of different ways. I mean, they kind of look like federal agents, frankly. And they drive cars you'd expect federal agents to drive.
Can you name some of those cars? I've seen a lot of Jeep Wagoneers.
Ford Expedition. That's their favorite. Those are the two favorite. But
Jeep Wagoneers.
Jeep Wagoneer is you're either driving a soccer team around some militarized suburb, right? That has 5,000 cops in it, or I guess you're an ICE agent. I was always confused by that car. I was
a black Ford Expedition with tinted plates. It's either gonna be like a young black guy, with a cool jacket, or it's gonna be 4 masked ICE agents.
But those are the only 2 demographics.
I mean, literally, it's the black Expeditions with the tinted windows. It's kind of a reverse racial profiling thing where I drive around and it's like a young black guy, and I'm like, oh my god, thank God. Otherwise it's scary. It's really scary when it's armed guys, and they've sort of gotten the sense that they should maybe take their masks off when they're driving, because it's pretty obvious when you look up and it's just 4 dudes wearing masks in the car in uniform. And so they were more often in plain clothes, I think, because they realized that we were making them pretty easy. Yeah. But they're still not very good at the camouflage. I mean, you look up and they got the reflective sunglasses on, and I'm like, you look like a cop. There's 2 of you in the front seat. I know what's hair. Yeah, I mean, they have this crew cuts, and they got the glasses, and there's 2 of them, and it's they're on a laptop, and I'm like, okay, guys, I mean, come on. So we drive around, we look for them, and then if you find them, what you do, you can't impede them anyway, especially not, you can't physically impede them. You will get arrested. That is a crime. But what they want to do is jump out and grab someone, and they can't really do that very easily if they're being recorded or monitored in any way. And so what we do is we just follow them. And, we could follow them for hours. I mean, I know people who follow them for an hour and a half, but, they usually try and get away. And they hate it being followed. They don't like being followed at all. And so they've gotten all kinds of tactics to try and get us off their tail. For a long time, they were just smashing windows, grabbing you, arresting you, taking you down to Whipple. That's their HQ. And then they'd let you out 8 hours later when it turns out they can't charge you with anything, really. They'd pepper spray you, all that. But then there's an injunction that says they can't do that. They still are to some extent, but less. And so now what they do is they're trying to find ways to scare you off. And so they'll get out of their cars, they'll take a picture of you. They take a picture of your plates, they'll run your plates, and then as you follow them, they'll just lead you back to your house, and they'll stop in front of your house. It's happened to me twice now. The first time the guy just pointed at my house as he drove by, and I said, yeah, I know, I live here. I know what you're doing. And then the second time was a little scarier. It was yesterday. I followed a car. I honestly couldn't confirm that it was ICE initially. It had no plates at all, tinted windows. I could see as he went by, I could see the sunglasses glint. That was kind of the clue. I was like, oh, that guy's got sunglasses on. He's got reflective sunglasses on. I bet it's ICE. It was a gray, I think it was a gray, not a Expedition, it's the other Ford one, Explorer. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing, they give themselves away a lot, because they will regular people don't notice when they pick up a tail, but the ICE agents notice immediately. So if you pull behind someone, if you do a quick U-turn and pull behind someone and they immediately pull off the road, I'm like, that's ICE. A normal person doesn't think that's
Yeah.
weird, but ICE knows what's happening. So he pulls off the road. I pull behind him, and at that point, we both know what's up. And he circles a single residential city block 25 times for maybe 40 minutes. It was bizarre. He just kept going slow circles. I've never seen anyone do this before. Then two more ICE cars pulled in, confirmed ICE plates pulled in behind me. I was like, oh, this is a trap. And then they led me back to my house. And you know, and then he got on the loudspeaker and he kept saying, "You live here, go home, go home." And I was shouting, you know, "You go home. Where do you live?" And I said, "Yeah, I have a constitutional right. If you're gonna arrest me, arrest me. But if you're not, I'm gonna keep following you." And then he just sped off, and he finally turned on his secret police lights at a red light and lost me that way because I'm not gonna run a red light. And yeah, and that sort of thing's just happening all the time, every day. I mean, thousands of people are doing it. Thousands of people are having these encounters every day.
I want to get a sense of timeline here, right? Like when did ICE start showing up in a very noticeable way in the city, and then how quickly did this uh, alert system, this neighborhood alert system, start? Because that's one of the things that I've been really fascinated about, and one of the things that I've been interested in is the different response to this, which is a very different problem and a very different atmosphere than what was happening in the same area in 2020, but that this feels so localized, right? It feels
Yeah.
almost pragmatic in a type of way, that it is organized differently, and it's not organized around big marches or anything like that, but it is around a neighborhood watch idea, which I think is much more um, doable, right? And a lot more, I think, appealing to people because they feel a certain investment in it, right? I think that actually some of the reason why your posts on Blue Sky or the people following what you've been doing has been resonant is because they hope that when ICE comes to their neighborhood and starts picking up their neighbors, that they would do the same thing, right? That they would have the same
Hmm.
level of commitment, and that they would be one of the people that would stop some of these, federal agent
Hmm.
excesses from happening. And so, yeah, can you just give a sense, like, so when did they start coming, and then how quickly did the alert system start organizing, and how did you get involved?
So I can't remember exactly when they announced the operation, and you know, as it ramped up, I don't think I noticed it substantially until Renee Good was shot. I mean, I knew I was aware this was happening. When she was shot, a couple things happened. I mean, first off, the number of people that were involved in a rapid response immediately went through the roof. My understanding is that she may have been involved. I don't know if it's totally clear what that is. But anyway, certainly they've tried to make her out like she was part of this, secret terror cell resisting ICE.
Right.
The Regardless, the number of people involved went to the roof. I went to a couple of the traditional protests, the vigils. I mean, there was a lot of community spirit. But if you've been to these protests, I mean, I'm not actually. I think protests are good. Often, like but the specifics of the protests are often a little irritating. You know, they start talking about stuff that's just like totally unrelated. Like
Yeah.
we're all here for like a very clear
Right.
reason, and let's talk about that. But then I remember the next day, someone sent me said, "Hey," a friend of mine said, "Hey, are you on the rapid response?" And I said, I actually am not. Send me the channel, and I join it, and it's overwhelming. It's just constant reports because But one of them was like a block from my house. It said, it's like alert, alert, we need observers. And they gave me an address, and actually, it was not a block from my house. It was a block from where I was at the time. I was downtown. And I
Right.
go down. So I just run down there. I go just sprinting down to see what's happening. And I get there, and it's my city council member and her aide standing there. And there's like 50 people in the street screaming. And there's like 20 Border Patrol guys, and Greg Bavino's there. And they got their assault rifles out. And it's this terrifying situation. And it's just something I couldn't. I mean, I think I went on Blue Sky and posted about it and just said, I can't even describe. It's so weird. And one thing that's weird about it, there's no law enforcement. There's no sense that these people are with any
Right.
sort of, there's not that sense of like, these are the authorities. It's like these people are an unwanted detachment of invaders that have just
Right.
suddenly decided to take over this intersection for reasons we don't understand and they won't tell us. And my elected official is standing right next to me, as baffled and as angry as I am. And then they just leave. I don't think they took anyone at that point. I think they were just doing a little show of force because that's what Greg Bavino likes to do. And at that point, it was like, oh my God, this is very real. It's happening, so close to us. And I sort of thought I should do more of this. And it was interesting is the more I did. So then I get on the rapid response. I'm trying to find someone's reporting an ICE car. I'm driving to try where I think it'll be. And as I do, I go by Somali Community Center. There's a big Somali Community Center in my neighborhood, and there's a bunch of Border Patrol guys like piling out of it or into it. You know, I go by and I'm like screech to a halt. I'm like, oh my god, they're like invading the community center as we speak, and I'm the only person here other than the Somali community. So then I have to get on the rapid response and be like, need observers right away. Here at this intersection, and then the more I'd see, the more you'd realize like how bad it had gotten. And so it had really, it really, especially after they killed Renee Good, one of the things that was so shocking is you'd think that would be the moment where they think, okay, this is excessive. There's a national controversy. Let's ease up, pull out a little bit. But instead, later that afternoon, they're tear gassing K-12 schools.
Yeah. I mean, that was shocking, right? That they went to Jesse Ventura's high school and they just started tear gassing kids at the school.
I have to say, I don't think of it as Jesse Ventura's high school.
That's what he said.
I was like, for me, it's just like one of the major schools around here.
Right.
They're going to like a lot of the major schools and tear gassing these schools. It's like it was like when they shot Renee Good, it's like they got what they wanted. They wanted more of it.
Right.
And you'd see things like where they would just deploy into an intersection in a residential street and just shoot everyone with pepper balls and then blow up a tear gas and do a squealing out. There was like it felt like they were trying to start a riot. It felt like they were trying to start a war. So yeah, I can't remember the second half of your question.
What I mean, how did these, to your knowledge, right? How did these neighborhood alert systems? How did these watch systems get developed?
I will say that I have a very vague understanding how this all got started.
Right.
I just joined them when they're already in progress. I have seen them grow. When I first joined, they've probably expanded since then. They probably tripled in size, if not more. And really in the first like 48 hours I was in them, they tripled in size. Probably they have sort of peaked because the intensity, at least here in Minneapolis, the intensity of the presence has peaked. So at least for now. So I mean, there's thousands of people. I mean, my neighborhood is not that big. And I remember at one point we had 1,500 people in our rapid response, network, and 50 patrolling cars. I mean, you would literally go down the street and there's people with whistles standing on every single street corner. I mean, it was like there was a false alarm a few days ago in an apartment building. Someone said an ICE agent was knocking doors. Those are rarely true because they honestly can't get out of their cars long enough to go just knock random doors. I was 2 blocks away on foot. I sprinted down there. Got there. I was the third person there by the time I got there, like 2 minutes later, like 2 minutes after the alert went out. Within the next 5 minutes, 100 people showed up. Like they literally, if there's an alert and whistles go off and there's a sense that there's ICE agents on the ground, you will get hundreds of people arriving within minutes. So they're very, very, very large. And as big as the ICE presence is on the ground here, they're probably outnumbered 100 to 1 by the rapid responders at any over any period of time if people are allowed to gather.
Well, do you have a sense? I think you sort of.
I'm going to say one thing though. One of the things that, in terms of how this all got started, my understanding is that a lot of this was sort of pioneered in Chicago. So I've done some trainings, and the people doing these trainings were often people who had developed this in response to the Midway Blitz in Chicago. Our situation is, frankly, I'm not trying to like one up them, but our situation is a lot worse. We have so many more agents, and also, I mean, even things like in the training, they'd say, if there's an ICE abduction, you have 5 to 7 minutes before they're gone. And it's like, I've seen them, and you have maybe 45 seconds to get there before the person's in the car. You'll never get a name, and the ICE agents are gone. Like they have the aggressiveness and speed is just like no comparison. But like it turns out the network is so dense that even with only if we 2 minutes is all we need usually.
Right. How do you kind of alluded to this earlier. I mean, I think there's been a sense a lot of people have that protest hasn't been really effective over the last 10 years or so since the rise of Trump and maybe since the civil rights movement. But what you're describing seems both pretty well organized, but also that, to be having a kind of impact, I think, which is, I think a lot of people feels refreshing. So, I mean, do you feel like these community organizations, the protests, the actions that you all are taking have sort of curtailed their ability to, abuse their power and do their jobs with impunity? Do you feel like it's having a clear impact?
Yeah. So I don't want to diminish the protests particularly. I think that, some are effective, some are not. It's not like a thing. And I think that, a lot of it, I think it has a galvanizing effect that's important. I mean, I probably wouldn't have joined this stuff if I hadn't gone to that initial vigil, kind of impromptu vigil at Renee Good's where she was killed. And also I will say that, we have not ongoing protests in front of the federal building here. And I really appreciate it because it keeps a lot of them busy. They have to have, if they have 100 guys deployed out there with armor, those are 100 guys I am not dealing with here on my street. With that said, I agree that the rapid response is quite a bit different. It is like you guys said earlier, it is, there's a sense that we are responding to. I mean, so compared to 2020, like 2020, you had this sort of civil breakdown here in Minneapolis, and I was here for that. It was awful in like every way. It was I would now say the second worst thing I've ever experienced, probably. It was, there's so much public anger, but it was kind of, there was no one to direct it at. Like yeah, the police sort of, but they were basically on strike, frankly. And also after you started to see this sort of breakdown in order and there's stuff getting burned, I mean, it wasn't even clear who was doing that. There was a sense, and I think this is partly true, that people were coming in from out of town to do this to us. That there was like not like necessarily strategically, but you'd have people coming in from Iowa or from the distant suburbs and say, "Oh, we can go to Minneapolis and break some windows."
Right.
But like, and it was definitely a different group than the people who were protesting for the most part. But it was just like it was the night would fall and it was just like, it just felt like it was just, there was no order to the world anymore, and you just were paranoid about everything and everyone. And there was neighborhood watch set up, but like, what were you looking for? You're kind of looking for anyone with an out-of-state plate or who looked kind of suspicious, but there's no way to identify who it was. What we have here is a little different in that there is a specific agency, specific entity that is targeting us. They are identifiable. They will identify themselves very readily if you catch them, and they are really out there. And and then and if we can find them and pursue them and monitor them, we can limit the damage. And I would say that the effect it's had is a couple of things. I mean, first off, the paranoia. Although there's still a lot of paranoia. Like if we follow someone and it's like, oh, that person's definitely not ICE. It's like, okay, good, great. You just let it go. You don't have that lingering suspicion for the most part. I mean, there's a few people it's kind of like, yeah, I don't know, but like for the most part, it's like they are or they aren't. And if there's not clearly that they are, they probably aren't. The other thing is that because it's an outside force that's doing to us, like rather than anyone wanting to target businesses or whatever, we're posting guards outside of them every night. It's like we are fighting an invading force. There is an enemy, and that has really united the city. And I think this is a major strategic error on the part of Trump and Stephen Miller and all of them. I think they thought Minneapolis is a city that riots. But if they come here and they are able to create a George Floyd and kill somebody, that will riot. And it's like, yeah, but you did it to us, and we know you did it to us. So we're not going to do that. We don't want to burn down our city. We don't want to burn down our businesses. We want you to leave. And so there's such a uniformity of consensus around that idea. Like, ICE out, get out.
It's the most simple demand, right? Because after George Floyd, it's like, well, Derek Chauvin should be in jail. He should be awaiting trial, which happened, right? And then you had basically what happened after that was a broader idea that society has to change, right? And that led to a lot of property damage. It also led to these sort of almost quasi-revolutionary things happening, like the police precinct burning down in Minneapolis, for example, right?
And like, I don't want to downplay, because as someone who lives here, the MPD had a lot of issues. It still has some, although
right.
I think they've made some substantial, progress.
But that's like, well, we are talking about, like, that is different than having people come in from who knows where, right? Like, that are masked, that are like the most, and I think that this is not an exaggeration, the most audacious display of federal occupation power that we have seen since like 1969, and probably it was worse than 1969, right? Where you just have these guys in masks running around.
Wearing masks then.
Yeah, and the National Guard's not wearing masks, right? And then you have somebody who's shot, and then you have the clearest demand possible, which I think is important, which is just like, get out of here, right?
I mean, that's the thing is that you have to remember that there was not a problem here. No one was sitting around being like, oh, we want the Somalis gone in Minneapolis. Oh, we want the Hmong people gone. These are our neighbors. I mean, if you live in Minneapolis, you see Somali and Hmong people every day. You see Latino people every day. It's fine. They're great. They're great neighbors. I mean, really, this is not a community that is like, obviously sometimes you have poor immigrant neighborhoods and you got the kind of poor neighborhood problems and whatever. But this is there's not like a huge problem with crime or disorder or whatever in Minneapolis. That's a Fox News creation.
Right.
Like, I live very close to large Somali communities and they're lovely. And it's like, and so they came in, they created the problem, and like you said, every single person, you could pick a child off the street or any random person and say, hey, how do you solve the problem Minneapolis is experiencing right now? Well, it's a really easy way to solve it. ICE leaves, ICE out. That's it. Problem solved. We're back to where we were.
How aware is everybody of this? Like, I think about the way that, for example, like, because I live in the Bay Area, right, and I think about the way in which homelessness was covered during the pandemic. Homelessness has gotten better here in the Bay Area, so it's less of a talking point on the right. But there's this idea, well, everything is zombie town, and I'd be like, yeah, if you go to Civic Center or if you go to certain
Mm-hmm.
neighborhoods like the Tenderloin, it's like it's not great, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the majority of San Francisco is like very nice, right? It's like
Yeah.
middle class Chinese families, or it's rich tech people, or it's middle class Latino families, and that there is not this like they don't have the same encampments there that they have downtown, and that it felt so localized, and that the rest of the city could even be not aware of this. Now, it doesn't sound like that's what's happening in Minneapolis, right?
It
It's
is
not like you
no,
can like kind of
no,
hide from this if you live in like I don't know, like
no,
Edina.
no,
Is that
no,
the
no,
rich suburb,
absolutely
Edina?
not. Yeah, Diana's a rich suburb.
Yeah.
You go to, so I can only speak to Minneapolis really
Right.
because I've barely
Right.
left since this has happened. Although I get the sense the inner suburbs are pretty much the same. You go into any store in Minneapolis, they're talking about ICE. The person at the front door is going to be talking about ICE to the person at the counter. You go into a restaurant. I was at a restaurant the other day, 4 tables full of people. Each table was talking about ICE. You go by, you go on the bus. The people on the bus are talking about ICE. You go to the bus stop. The homeless guy at the bus stop, he's shouting at ICE. I had a homeless guy shout me. He's like, they're only taking people of color. And I'm like, yeah, they are. That's right. I saw it. You go to, you get in an Uber, the Uber driver talking about ICE. You get to go to, you go to the bank, they're talking about ICE. I mean, every single business has no ICE, no federal agents allowed on their door. They're locking the doors of most of the businesses, so you have to knock to get in because, that's the only way to keep them out. Every single street post, anti-ICE posters, half the people carrying whistles. Like, it is 100% like unanimity around not only that this is a problem, but this is the problem. This is what is happening here, and we need to worry about it. It's like it's hard to even describe if you're not here how little people are noticing or caring about anything else.
Well, one talking point we've seen from Stephen Miller and that the administration is everyone is, focusing on a few bad arrests or an accidental grab of a citizen. But if you look
Mhm.
quantitatively, these are very, very few and far between. We have, we're a very professional organization, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think many listeners of this show will believe that. But like, could you give a sense as to like how, because that's their story. These abuses are few and far between. They just get blown up on social media. Everyone focuses on them and thinks these abuses of power are omnipresent. But I mean, it sounds like you've described in talking to us a lot of abuse of power you've seen on a kind of a near in lawlessness on a kind of near constant basis. Is that
I have
pretty
not
fair?
seen, I don't think I have seen a single interaction with an ICE agent or a DHS agent that I would describe as at least not substantially pushing the line.
Mhm.
And I would say the vast majority have been, I've seen a lot because they're
Mhm.
everywhere. And the vast majority have been far over the line. I mean, it's everything, like I said, from people tailing observers home. That's happened constantly. It's happened to me twice. It's happened to many people many times. It's smashing people's windows, driving the car, tear gassing for stuff, defying federal injunction to not do that to observers. When I've seen them get out of the car in force, they will, someone's getting pepper sprayed, someone's getting pepper balled. Probably the whole intersection is getting tear gassed. I've seen them when I've seen them abduct people. They jump out of the car, run them down the street without figuring out who they are. It's like they appear to be targeting solo pedestrians of color because who don't have anyone there who can identify them, who don't have any support, and they just run them down. They stuff them in the car and they disappear. If you can't get their name, just pretty much gone forever. We don't know who they are.
Right.
And I've seen, what else have I seen? I've seen, for instance, them just camp, deploy in random, intersections and just appear just want to cause a fight and then just tear gas everybody. I've seen them stop random cars and say, "Are you harboring fugitives? Are you, they maybe one person they ran someone's plates. It seemed this was yesterday. Uh, they pulled out a car right in front of me, stopped in the middle of the intersection. 3 armed agents got out. It was a Latina woman. They said, you're harboring someone. We're going to arrest you if you are. And she said, are you? They'd run her plates and it was associated with someone. It says, my ex-boyfriend, and said, kept saying, we're going to arrest you. We're going to arrest you. And, she's scared the living daylights out of that poor girl. They have tear gas K-12 schools. They frequently, and they're still doing this today. They will post up major patrols near bus stops where like school children are getting off,
Well, they
seemingly
actually did that
intentionally.
in Portland today. The local news has been covering it. They two ICE agents stood and like creepily watched a school bus get loaded with children, and then some people complained, and I guess it seems like someone confronted them about it, and then they're like, "Oh, we're not doing anything wrong," and then just like kind of
Yeah,
scattered away
they've
and
done
left.
that very consistently here. They go into hospitals and get people, in like medical emergencies. I have seen them threaten to detain cops. Um, I don't know if it's public, but there's lots of videos get shared on the rapid response stuff, which unfortunately I can't share because it's not my video, and people have like lots of privacy concerns. But I've seen them threaten to detain cops. I mean, by every they are not acting like they are a law enforcement agency cooperating with other law enforcement agencies towards a law enforcement mission. They are acting like an occupying force here to terrorize
Exactly.
people and harm the city. The other thing I'd say is that what is if let's say let's stipulate that you want to do immigration enforcement. I'm a liberal, pretty pro immigration. It's not that I don't really care about immigration enforcement that much. I mostly like all of my neighbors, immigrants or not. But let's say you want to do immigration enforcement. Well, they're always terrible for that.
Yep.
They need 20 dudes to get one person. They'll grab 20 dudes, grab one person. They don't even know who it is. The person's problem. Most immigrants here in Minneapolis are actually citizens. Hmong people, Somali people are like both 95% plus citizens.
Yep.
So they grab someone, they take them down the Whipple, they make this person go through hell, and then they release them the next day because it turns out he's a citizen. They're probably $500,000 worth of men and equipment on a street corner to grab one person. Then you tear gas a bunch of random people who are furious. You basically set send half the city into a terror, and then you get nothing out of it. Supposedly they're here to do because of this Nick Shirley crap with fraud in Somali daycares or whatever. They're looking for fraud. Well, guess what? They brought an army, but I haven't seen one accountant. Like I don't think there's a guy in the back of the Black Expedition like scrolling through spreadsheets. Like it's a guy with an
They don't
assault
seem like
rifle.
spreadsheet types, Steve.
Yeah, they don't seem. I'll tell you, they don't seem like spreadsheet types. I've seen these guys up close, and they'll get in your face and they say, "I'll do it. I'll shoot you. I'll pepper spray you." But they're not saying they're not talking about it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense that they're doing what they say
Bank
they're
of
doing.
America statements?
Yeah, they're not doing an audit. I'm sorry. So it's just like it's an invasion. I mean, no one here is confused about what it is. It feels like an invasion. It looks like an invasion. It's an invasion.
One of the things I was really curious about talking to you about was that you've seen these people up close, right? You've seen these agents up close, and they are doing things that I don't think that, let's say that there are people who are like people who worked on the border with CBP or
Mhm.
something like that, right? And they're doing things that I don't think that I looked that there's problems with Border Patrol or whatever, but they're not occupying American city and tear gassing people
Mhm.
and tackling high school kids at their school. Like this is all stuff that like is beyond them. Like what how do they behave, right? Like how, like I know the aggression or something like that's there,
Mhm.
and we've seen the videos. I mean, some of the videos are stomach turning. Like there's that video that everyone watch, a lot of people watch, where they're cornering like a woman, and they're asking her where she's from, if she's a US citizen, show ID, and she's very brave in that moment, but like you can see the intimidation factor that they're doing, and they're doing it because she's not white and because she has an
Mhm.
accent, right? And
Yeah.
they think that like accents are probable cause now, which is fucking insane
I
to
mean,
me,
that's
you know?
transparently the argument. Being
Right.
brown and having an accent's probable cause. Yeah.
Yeah.
The
They are literally just targeting anyone who's not white. I mean,
right,
it's
right.
incredibly obvious when you see it.
Is it just full on defiance and like and aggression? Is there like always like a good cop in there? Is like, do you see any
No,
sort
I've
of
not seen
breaking
anyone.
of do you see breaking of spirit or anything like that? Because like, like this is not look, if it was 200 dudes, I could believe that they had just rounded out like 200 dudes who like stormed the Capitol or something like that, and just like, fuck yeah, I finally get to bash some heads. But like you said, it's thousands of agents in there. And I'm not saying can we seek out the good agents or anything like that. I
But
just
some
want
of
to
them
know
must be
what I
sad,
just want to
right?
know what their demeanor is
I
like when they're
think
doing this type of stuff, because
my
like it's just
suspicion.
so it's mind
Yeah,
blowing to me that they would
I've been curious
engage in
about
this
this.
much illegal stuff.
I think that the Border Patrol people are like a paramilitary force around Greg Bavino.
Right.
There's different groups. You start to notice the different groups. The Border Patrol people are scary. They're heavily armed. They're always geared up. They come in and they move in force. You see Border Patrol agents in an SUV, and you're like, something's going to happen. Something's about to go down. I think that's like a. I mean, I think Greg Vino is building a little SS essentially. I think that's what he's doing. He's even wearing the little coat. The I think that Ice is different. Ice is like a bunch of bums. I got some crazy pictures of Ice, like guys in like party shirts with a tactical vest over it. The guy looks at me like at 2:30 into this casino last night. Woke up, had some hair of the dog, and is like, "I'm gonna go break up someone's family forever."
Like a tuxedo T-shirt, you know?
Oh yeah, no, like literally, just I have a picture of a guy. I wish I could. I wish I just. I'd just show you on my phone. This guy, he's got like he's got like the transition lenses, and he's like half bald, and his hair is long down his back, and he's wearing like a rough button up shirt with like flowers on it, and he's got a tactical vest and a coat, and he's like out there, and they photographed him abducting a family. So it's like these guys are bums, they're losers. I think that many of them are probably scared and depressed about what's happening. I mean, I don't think this is an ideological project for them. I don't think they're particularly nice people. I don't think that if you're a nice person, you probably work here anymore. But like, I think a lot of them would rather not be here. One of the things that we're starting to see a little bit here in Minneapolis, because the neighborhood response has been so suffocating for them, is there's almost like a routine to it where we catch them and then we follow them around for a little while and they give us a little thumbs up and they leave. They're just like, okay. And as the guys, I mean, they're getting paid. 5:00. One thing they may change this up, but for a while it was really noticeable that like 5:00 comes and they vanish. Like it was like they all over. Yeah, they're done. I mean, it's like this ended 9 to 5. Their day's over. They're not gonna stay out late for this.
Wait, you're telling me these people are 9 to 5? Like it's like
the ICE guys. I think so. They're like 9 to 5. I mean, I think that there were a couple of days where they would just stage like a night operation, so they'd be all over until late. But then they would start later the next day. So it was like I mean, they're south. They don't. Like, how are you getting them to work 90 hours a week? You can't get them to do that. They'll just quit the job.
Yeah, especially since their bonuses are like, I found are like prorated for 5 years or something.
Yeah. It's very misleading.
When I found that out, I was like, what is wrong with these dudes?
No, these dudes are just like, I think that they're just, and even some of the, like, one of the ones where I saw the Border Patrol jump out, I got this video, and the guy in front, he's got a can of tear gas, and he's ready to go, and he's like shaking it or pepper spray, whatever. But he is visibly like shaky. Like you can tell he's jumping. And so like, I cannot imagine they're having a lot of fun. I mean, maybe some of the real sickos that are like, want this. But like, if you're just there because, you thought it was a pretty good job and you kind of like Donald Trump, like this has got to feel like hell on earth.
Right. One of the things you mentioned that I just want to pick up on, because it's something I was told by a journalist who's covered ICE for a while, is that there's a kind of slight public misconception that everyone talks about ICE, ICE, ICE. And yes, to your point, ICE sucks, but that the Border Patrol are the worse. Real, like,
no, they're the freaks.
That's
Vortex,
like
right?
Yeah. No, and you can see it on the ground. I mean, like when the Border Patrol show up, it's like things are going to be bad.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones. I think they're usually the ones that I've seen launch the tear gas. They, like I said, one of the first things I saw here is I was driving along. I was like, are these guys really everywhere though? I'm sitting. One thing you do is I take my little Honda Fit and I lurk in a spot behind a big SUV on this major road where they can't see me. I just park, and so I can watch them, but they can't see me until I'm behind them. And I'm like watching the cars go by for like half an hour and I don't see anything. And I'm thinking like, okay, maybe they're just like not everywhere. And I look up and there are 2 giant black expeditions full of Border Patrol guys and they got masks on, helmets on, and guns. And I'm like, oh my God. And that's how they operate. It feels like a military convoy. One of the things that's happened, Minneapolis has gotten, like I said, less intense in the last few days. That may change. Who knows? No one knows what the future looks like. But one of the things I was thinking about today that has made it less intense is that the Border Patrol has basically not been present here in Minneapolis in the last few days. They're probably out brutalizing people in outstate or something, but it's mostly just been regular ICE. And although they're bad, they're like kind of stupid thugs. They're not like commandos.
It's not like a immediate escalation force in the way that these BORTAC
the Border Patrol people. Right? Yeah. The Border Patrol people, as far as I can tell, are just like here to just cause violence.
I
mean, we're not even near the border. I mean, what are you, your Border Patrol? We're in Minneapolis.
Yeah, go north. Like, I mean, like, there's like Bavino is such an interesting figure for me because it's almost like he's Where's Waldo in the Twin Cities right now, where it's like he just pops up places, and everywhere he pops up, he's filmed, right? Like every video is like there's early on the day that Renee Good was killed, there was that Uber driver who went viral because he was being swarmed by ICE agents, and then Bavino shows up, right? And then there's a woman at a gas station, and Bavino's there, right? And then there's people at a Target, and Bavino's taking a shit in the Target.
That was the funniest one. He gets like, you're like, what's happening here? Why are we filming this restroom? And all of a sudden Bavino strolls out with this like little Praetorian guard of Border Patrol dudes. He's such a loser. God,
he's like tiny too, right?
I think he's tiny. Dude.
Yeah.
He is loathsome.
But it's been so interesting because that's a part of it that feels the most like an occupational force to me. I mean, I from afar, right now, I think if I lived there, I would feel it much more intensely. But like from the optics of it, is like you have a little general walking around.
Well, that's right.
Basically, like, this is my territory now. These are my guys, and you can't do a fucking thing about it. And it is not just a challenge to the citizens like yourself of the city. It's also a challenge to the police. It's like you can't do anything about it. And I think that Jacob Frey, if you hear some of his comments, the mayor of Minneapolis, like he's sort of expressing this dilemma he's in, right? And then you have Tim Walz kind of talking big about how he might use the National Guard, but he can't do anything like that, really, right? And so it's almost like you have this conquering force that came in.
Two elements to it. You have the kind of like military force,
right?
Which is, I think, largely Border Patrol. There's like lots of little, they brought in FBI and U.S. Marshals and all these little agencies they pull in. And they're just rolling around the city, basically showing up in places with guns and like literally it's like, people boo and jeer, and it's like it's like the Roman general, like presiding over the conquered peoples. I mean, it's just that is undeniably the sense of it.
Right.
And then you have the secret police, the ICE, where it's like they're rolling around in these like unmarked cars, tinted windows, kind of a lot of suspicion everywhere, kind of lurking around places. And there's thousands of them, outnumbering the cops many times. And so it's like, the combined atmosphere is terrifying. Although I will say that, somehow we're in such a nightmare situation that's like, well, at least the conquering army appears to have moved on to somewhere else for a little while. And so we were just dealing with the secret police, which is already, pretty bad. I agree. I'm going to also note, though, the thing about the cops is interesting. I'm sure there are elements in the Minneapolis police force that are working with ICE to some extent, just because, like, these guys are kind of reactionary. But in general, it is really striking when you're on the ground, and I wasn't necessarily expecting this, how little cooperate. I mean, if you see police, there's not going to be ICE, and if you see ICE, there's not going to be police.
That's interesting.
Which leads to some really strange situations. For instance, where you have 5-10 cars chasing an ICE convoy down a major street, causing just like an unholy racket because everyone's honking, everyone's whistling. The ICE guys are, tearing away. And then a couple of police cars just go by and just like, I see nothing here, nothing to see. Just rolling by.
That's not my problem type of
they
thought.
Don't, like, I can't imagine. I mean, these guys are, especially they're such jokers. And they're making the police jobs hell. I mean, like, I don't care, where your politics are as a police officer. You don't want people tear gassing your commercial intersections and clubbing people in the street. And you can't do anything about it.
Right.
I've not talked to any police officers, and I know a few of them who have, and all of them Republicans, who have anything nice to say about how ICE. I mean, they're just like, this is unprofessional dog shit,
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I heard, ICE, there was some sort of standoff where they threatened to detain the cops, although I don't, and ICE will cause traffic accidents. I mean, one thing is like, apparently, yesterday I got pursued, or was pursuing, kind of a little mutually chasing each other, this car without a plate, and it's sort of like, should we just call the cops? I mean, this is a car that has circled the block 25 times. It's no plate on it. It's
like
super
no
sketchy.
License plate.
No license plate. I mean, like, or it was obscured to the degree that I couldn't tell if it was no license plate or, that's how much they obscured it. And I was told that the police are not responding to reports of no plates anymore because, they'll get stuck in a situation where they're expected to arrest ICE, which makes me feel like I should take my plates off so ICE can stop stalking me. But
then you'll get followed by another one of you.
Yeah, then they'll follow you.
That does happen. There are observers that have like out of state SUVs, and it's like, then they get followed, and you have to continually no, that's me. You'll start seeing black SUVs in the neighborhood will start putting up, especially if you out of state plates or it's a rental or something, they'll have signs, not ICE. They'll brighten the dust on the back, not ICE, or press or whatever. Just because, if you have a dark colored SUV and you have out of state plates, or you've kept it like a little suspiciously clean or something, like you're suspect right now. You really
They
are.
are so suspiciously clean. Like, do they? I mean, are they car washing them every day?
Okay,
It's
so
also Minnesota in the winter. There must be like salt and debris and shit
so
on all the cars all
this
the
I don't
time.
want to say this on a podcast. I'm going to, because I think probably they figured it out. I don't know. I feel like this is the thing, that their cars are too clean. That's how I always find them. It's like, I'm like, it's a clean SUV in winter in Minnesota. Like, you're parking indoors and you just rented that car. That's the only explanation.
Right,
100%.
Um, I want to, I think that one of the things that people have really responded to you and the stuff that you've been putting on Blue Sky is that, and I thought about it because I was like, well, what it is, and it's not just you, obviously, it's many,
Yeah, I
many
want to be clear
people,
that
right? No,
nothing
no,
I'm
no, no.
doing is
Yeah,
unique.
right. And I think you've been very clear about that and explicitly
I'm
clear
very
about that.
scared of people being saying, you're
No,
stealing
no,
valor
I
here.
don't.
It's like,
I don't think
yeah.
that's true at all. I think that what
In fact,
people
there's
are
people doing stuff
refreshed
that's
about,
incredibly brave, like people who have gotten face down with armed officers saying,
right,
"Your final warning, desist," and just continue to follow them. If I had an
right.
armed, I have not had that happen to me. If someone came out with an assault rifle and kind of brandished at me and said "final warning," like, I'd go home for the day. I don't think I could handle that.
Yeah,
So
I think I would too. But like I think that what people are heartened by, because I think a lot of us, and this includes me, I think includes Tyler, is that this is in terms of government occupation and in terms of things that look like other periods of history that are really bad. This is like the closest we've been in our lifetime, and it's scary, and
yeah,
that seeing people in the image of, let's say, you driving around in a Honda Fit, which I think is a great car.
it's a
And
great car for this. It's
yeah,
so good for
yeah,
this.
I just think it's a great car overall. First
It's
of
a
all,
great car. It can turn in a city street. You can whip a U-turn and pull behind a sketchy SUV so fast. Like, they don't have a chance to react. You're behind them and they cannot lose you.
but the seat, I will say that the seat going down system, like, I don't know what it's called, the seat collapse
Yeah.
system in the Honda Fit is amazing.
Yeah,
And
it's
that,
also
like,
got tons of space. I had for half the first half of this, I put on a giant Christmas event. It was kind of a month-long Christmas event for my neighborhood. I'd sort of put together,
right.
and so I had all the Christmas supplies in the back of my car. So I'm chasing around these ICE vehicles with them. My whole Honda Fit is full of just like boxes of like holiday Christmas
Christmas
passports
lights
and,
and
and
Santas.
decorations and stuff. Yeah, and like, I'm
Amazing.
chasing ICE.
No, but I think that they feel like that people can be brave in this moment, right? And it's heartening in that type of way, that like people can show a little bit of spirit and bravery, and that they're not going to just accept it all lying down, and that people are willing to put their own safety and put their own livelihood on the line to help their neighbors. And that's an extremely powerful idea. And I was wondering what you felt like, about how you felt like this has affected the spirit of the city, right? Like, I think you
Yeah,
alluded in 2020, like, I think that a lot of people felt pretty broken after that, right?
yeah.
And like, regardless of what their politics were, they're just like, man, like, we suffered a lot because, like, we've
Mhm.
suffered a lot, right? And I wonder what the spirit you feel like, as somebody who has obviously lived there, and I think people can tell by your accent, or, this is not a second home to you, that this is all like, how has the city responded, and how do you feel about the city right now?
Um, yeah. So, I mean, a couple things about that. I mean, first off, yeah, I feel it's funny because I keep tweeting things to the effect of like, we're going to win, they can't beat us, and it's like, I'm not just saying this. Like, they have 3,000 people. Yeah, it's a lot of people. We got 450,000 people in the city. We got 3 million people in the metro. They don't have enough guys. They can kill so many of us. They can shoot so many of us. They can do whatever, follow us around, beat us up, jail us, intimidate us. It doesn't matter. They don't have enough guys. Like until they break our spirit to fight back, they can't win. And this is kind of what Stephen Miller and Donald Trump don't understand, because they exist in a world where people are either dominant or subservient, and they think that the way you establish power is you come in, you show you're the dominant person by kicking someone who's weaker than you, and then everyone cowers and hides behind their blinds and runs away. And they weren't expecting you to come in and kill someone and tear gas our streets and fight us, and we would just run at them. And
Right.
that is what has happened. The other thing I'd say, and this goes to people that are, always so courageous. And I mean, I've seen people do just feats of incredible bravery. But, one of the things that's been so surprising to me the first few times this happened, and I saw this stuff, is in the moment, you don't feel afraid. Like, you just don't. When it's an invader like this, and you feel like you're being attacked, and your neighbors are being attacked, and they're taking away people that, are in your community, and you're the only one who can stop them. you just feel angry and energized, and like I remember the first time when I was just chasing after this guy, these guys, and like I'm going way too fast in my little fit, and I'm going down. I follow him down an alley. I mean, there's like a convoy of armed border patrol guys going down this little blind alley where no one can see anything. I'm starting to jump out of the cars, and I'm just whipping behind them. I'm right behind them in my fit, and I'm honking like crazy. And I'm thinking, and it's only later I think, like, what was I doing? Like that they could machine gun me. I don't know what's
Right.
gonna happen in that alley. But at the time, it's just like it's just like there is no fear because it's so important, and you feel the cause. And I think that I mean, later on, you really you pay a price. You lie on your couch, and you just want to die. It's like
Yeah,
all the tension comes out
jacked
of you.
up on adrenaline, right?
There's like a
Yeah.
PTSD response or something later on. But it has been so. Or the first time when I saw the tear gas goes up, and I just start running towards it to see what's happening, and then like later on, I'm like, I just ran into a plume of tear gas. Like I'd never been tear gassed before. I didn't know what was going to happen there. And I think that what was been surprising to me. I mean, and again, this is not just me. This is kind of how everyone's reacting. I think that what people can sort of take heart is that, yeah, right now, this may feel like a lot. It may feel like something you wouldn't be able to do, but I bet you could. I bet if you have real, care about your community, care about your neighbors, care about the things that you're trying to protect here, I bet you could do it if it was happening in your city. You may not think you can do it, but I bet you could. And and that they just can't. They don't have enough guys to beat us if so many of us feel this way and so many of us act this way. And the experience here in Minneapolis is that there are vastly more people that feel like that than sympathize with them or share their such simple like worldview. So
I agree with your assessment of why they chose your city, right? I think that they really thought that basically in their whatever cloistered Twitter brains, that they thought that what they could do is start another gigantic riot where the
that's
city
right.
would burn.
I
And
think it's two
that,
things.
yeah,
It's the presence of Somalis who they've
right,
decided are the worst minority because they're
right,
black and they're Muslim and they're immigrants, so it's the trifecta.
right.
Um, and then it's because they think this is where the city that riots, where the city that won't keep it together, and they like could not have been more wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they thought we wouldn't protect our Muslim neighbors. I mean, I think they thought that everyone secretly loathes these immigrant groups the way they do, and it's like we don't. I mean, people here in Minneapolis really truly like we love our neighbors.
I also think, I mean, they've only been here a day, and just the fact that it's something you have to think about just leaving your house, right? Like, am I going to run into these people on my way to the grocery store? Should I get groceries for a number of days rather than just one day so I
Mhm.
can limit the amount of time I'm outside, right? Like, these are questions people don't want to have to ask regardless of their politics. And I would have to imagine that even some people in Minneapolis who maybe support immigration restriction or who maybe voted for Trump, just
Mhm.
the disruption to the place they live and going about their lives, I mean, that has to be making them mad, you know?
I
So
know a handful of Trump voters, not very many because it is Minneapolis, but I haven't seen any sense from any of them. No one, I haven't been like, well, actually, no, no. It's just like you don't. There's no question that what's happening here is terrible, and the comparison is again in their deranged Fox News fantasies. We were living in this like urban hellhole every day, fleeing
like
from I don't know.
Fallujah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It was like every day. It was Somali gangs getting us in the street or whatever. And it's like no, it was a really nice place to live. We all like living here, and you've come in here and trashed it. So actually, no one. We just want to go back to what it was before. I mean, I think the thing about, and I guess one other thing I'm going to add, because you're talking about people staying home and stuff. I really want to note this because there's so much attention on the rapid response, and we call them the commuters that follow the people. There is another aspect of this that gets a lot less showy, but it's really important. Many, many, many people are not leaving their homes right now. They're not. They're stuck at home. They have trouble getting to work, or they work somewhere that they can't get in and out safely. And so there's this entire other response side of the rapid response and the community support where getting food to families that are stuck at home, making sure they can get school supplies. Our schools have gone largely remote, which isn't great, but families won't go to school otherwise. We have
And that part alone, the fact that they
the federal
closed the
government has
fucking
the
schools.
federal government has forced us to
It's
shut our
happening here
Do
schools.
you know
already
how
too. Same thing.
angry parents are when their kids miss school because
Yeah.
you can't have life, like you can't do things, you can't work because your kids are at home and you don't have childcare. Like that's like so disruptive. And
And things like, for instance, so we have businesses that, I mean, like the cooks at a restaurant or,
yeah, yeah,
and so we will post guards outside the businesses at closing hours so that they can get in and out. We have shift change. We post guards outside businesses. Bar close. We post guards outside businesses, just protecting the people. So, the people who are able to do this safely, white people largely, citizens, relatively affluent people standing up to support financially and in other ways people who like cannot do this safely, who would be targets, so they can go about their lives as normally as possible, or at least just feed themselves and educate their kids and stuff. I mean, that is a huge element of this. It's less glamorous, obviously, than like we're chasing agents in the street, but like without that, it wouldn't, none of this would really matter. So it really is like, I mean, it's hard to describe. It's like the whole city's on, I would describe it as almost a war economy. I mean, we have shifted the way everyone's interacting to just try and, support each other through this until they leave.
yeah. I saw like a hospital, or maybe it was a nurses and midwives association, where deploying more people to do homework because people were afraid to go to the hospital
Yeah. I mean,
um, to
many
give
people just will not
birth.
go outside.
Yeah, and that's like, I mean, it's terrifying. Like, I think that, like I think about my own family. It's like my parents have accents; they're not white.
Hmm.
It's like, and you see what's happening with the Hmong community there. You see like this man have it. They broke down the door
Yeah.
to his apartment. They put a gun to his daughter-in-law's head, right? And they
Hmm.
drag him out in his underwear, and they,
Shirtless.
yeah, and they say, "Oh, well, he's a citizen, but he was housing some undocumented sex offenders." Seems like maybe that's not true, right? And
Hmm.
that they just made a mistake. And you think about your own family, and I think that in that type of moment, that I think what you're saying, when it's your community, when it's not even your family, but maybe your neighbor, that probably the potential for people to not be afraid is quite high,
When
and
yesterday, when these guys followed me back to my house, or sort of led
right.
me back to my house, one of the things I did as I approached my home in my car, and you can see, I put up a video of this because I was recording it. I didn't know what was going to happen. I wanted to have evidence. As I approached my apartment, I just laid into the horn, like over and over and over, as loud as much as I could. And the reason I did that is I knew that the moment I did that, all my neighbors, who are all aware of this, would come flooding down, and then within a minute, the street is full of people. Cars that are happening to be passing by are pulling over, they're honking. There's people whistling. Like 20 people are standing around with cameras filming everything. And yeah, I've got 3 ICE cars around me, but I've got 150 neighbors around me. And so it's like that gave me the confidence to do what I was doing. And I think that knowing that you have the support of your community like that is what lets us resist them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, is there anything else you want to talk about? You said that you didn't have so much time. We're going
Yeah, I
on an
guess,
hour
yeah.
here, but like,
It's been pretty quiet today, so it's
oh
okay.
yeah, Tyler, do you have any last questions? I think I have one.
No, no. I think we covered everything I wanted to cover. And I think one thing I was curious about, which you really spoke to, is, I mean, this has been a very dark week or two. Jay and I talked about this last week, but it's also been very hopeful in a sense that I think this is the first time in a long time I felt that, like, actually, no, people aren't going to just take this. Like they have made a mistake thinking that you could just occupy a city and people are going to take it because they won't. But yeah, go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, my last question was, like in terms of, like, it's not going to stop at Minneapolis. I think that we don't know if this withdrawal that you've seen is permanent or not, but that they're going into Tyler's community now in Maine,
Mhm.
right? They're going to places that Tyler and I have both spent a lot of time in Maine, are very familiar with
The
because
safest state in the country, by the way, which, like, or one of the
yeah.
safest, which gives the lie to this idea that
Yeah.
this is about crime. I mean, it's
Yeah.
preposterous.
And that it almost seems arbitrary where they go, right? So they were going to come to the Bay Area, for example, and then like the mayor and some tech people got on the phone with Trump, and I don't know, maybe they just said, "Hey, please don't," and he said, "Okay," right? And who
Mm.
knows why Trump does what he does?
Yeah.
But that, I think more people and more communities are going to start seeing this. They're going to like look over and they're going to see four dudes in a mask with guns, which to me is just a terrifying thought, right? I mean, like, imagine any other instance when you would see that, you would immediately floor it and flee, right? Do you have any advice for people, like, who are just normal people like yourself, on how they can sort of find these community networks, how they
Yeah.
can
You
get
can build them.
involved?
You can
Yeah.
build them. I mean, they may exist in your area already, but the Chicago people, that's what they said to us. They said, you don't have to wait. These networks, there's not like a single entity that's putting them together. There's kind of a system. They've adopted best practices from each other, so there's kind of uniform system now across the region. But like, my neighborhood didn't have one, and someone said, we should start one. And so they made a signal channel, and they sort of modeled it after the other ones. And then, they went to a training and they sort of changed it around a little bit, and they started adding people. And then people ask me, I've had dozens of people ask me, hey, I want to do what you're doing. How do I get in? I'm like, here's a link. They're not vetted. One of the things that's really important not to worry about is, the strength that we have here doesn't come from anonymity. It doesn't come from, our, sorry, 1 second. I've got a computer issue. Our strength is not coming from our anonymity. It's coming from just the number of people we have. And so there's no reason to hesitate and just putting it together. You don't have to worry about security or operating in the shadows. Just say, hey, we need to start building these institutions so we can resist them, and just do it now. And if it's 20 people to start, that's great, because then once something happens, you can say, we've got something going, we'll add you, and before long it'll be 400, and before long it'll be 800, and there's just no reason to wait on that. The other thing I would say, and probably close with, is that one of the reasons this has felt weirdly hopeful, despite being horrific and just like really one of the most stressful periods of my life, if not the most stressful, is that this is the first time in the Trump administration, both Trump administrations, where I had genuinely felt like they can't win, not because someone is going to come in and save us. The Democrats are going to come in and save us. They're going to impeach them, whatever. Someone's going to do something to them, but because of us, because there's nothing they can do to us that will make us stop resisting them. And they can freak out, the elite law firms and universities and Congress and the corporate leaders and I guess NATO and EU, whatever, but they can't scare us. They can't scare us into stopping. And because of that, they just can't win. I mean, what are they going to do? They're stuck. It's a quagmire for them. They're
Right.
stuck here until they decide they realize it's a waste of everyone's time and they leave. And so, when your strength comes from the community like that, it really does, give you like confidence that that you don't get when you're relying on some outside entity to do it for you. So,
well, that's very inspiring to hear, sincerely. And I think something that I think a lot of people need to hear right now. Thanks for coming on the show,
Sure.
man.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And sharing some of your experiences here. And if you can just hang on a second after we stop recording.
yeah, so it just gave me a little
download.
notification saying it has difficulty. That's why I paused. It says there's difficulty saving the backup on my
No, that's okay. It'll save it to here. Hold on.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
Okay, 1 sec. And just don't close the window.
Yeah, I won't